Okay, hello and welcome. This will be the guide for early land placement. I just saw this post on Reddit and it's something I always wanted to talk about. And maybe this is a good timing to make this now, but it will be a little bit improvised, so forgive me for that. Okay, let's jump right into it. As you can see, I will start with aggro. Aggro is pretty straightforward. With green aggro you often start with a green tile here in front of your orb, where you can later play your Tiki Caretaker just to keep them safe and maybe harvest later. And this is the spot where you want your green field in order to drop, in best case, a Word on Force. Unless you run like Steam Forges, then you can also open with double neutral. Like in this case, same goes for the Yellow Rush list. If you run Steam Forges, you can always open with double neutral. This gives you a wider range and often makes it easier to claim this spot. This spot is really crucial for aggro lists because you can play minions, harvest the following turn and attack. And especially with Yellow Rush lists, you can play your haste minions and attack and farm on the same turn. Here is another example for a Yellow Rush list which doesn't run Steam Forges. In this case it's good. You always want to open with deserts, and in most cases here. There are certain cases where you open from the side. That's when you play against another Yellow Rush deck and your starting hand is very bad. Because if they open double prairie here, or let's say if they just go prairie here and then drop a minion over there, they can use your fields just for their advantage if you don't have minions to fight them. So you don't want to give them the easy way. And also you can later use this side to harvest if you find a follower which you don't want to use for attacking, but farming instead. And yeah, also if you play Yellow Rush and have a Shaitan Vampire on your starting hand, in this case you would wait one more turn with your second desert and go for double neutral field here, which gives you these three possibilities of deploying your Shaitan the following turn. This spot would be pretty good because you can kill the Flamesplitter here. Okay, let's jump to midrange stuff. Midrange decks usually try to fight for this side, and you always want to go, or most of the times want to go on the side where your enemy builds to, because you have lots of cards that help you in the mid game and which support your mid-range creatures. Mid-range decks don't run that many small harvesters like Farm Boys, for example, and this is a pretty good example of a mid-range creature which you use to farm, but also you really want to fight. Like you have the Twitten Diver and the Shifting Tide, which can help you to surprise your enemy. Here I play against the AI, so he plays a little bit stupid, but normally your opponent would place his minion here, right, to farm safe. But of course he's not safe because we have Twitten Diver to jump over or the Shifting Tide. Yeah. Another thing mid-range decks often run are buffs. And like this is a good example, a green-blue list. If you have a Tiki Caretaker and your opponent is in range, you can buff your minion and just attack. Next thing is the control. Control lists usually want to harvest rather passive. You don't, like mid-range decks need their minions to fight and trade. Control lists have lots of removal spells, so they can play cheap harvesters, which they don't have to use for fighting. However, they want them to be resilient or very cheap like a Farm Boy, or resilient like this Queen's Favorite. And then if your opponent plays minions like small ones, you can soul drain. If he plays a big guy like a ground shaker, you can last nightmare them. And yeah, of course this is AI, he plays a little bit stupid, but what you want to do is bring out to your requirements. For yellow are 5 deserts for your highest cost minion, so you want to spam deserts and farm both these sides. And if your opponent plays minions, you just use their removal spells if you can, if you draw them. Next thing are some like special topics like Aquatic, for example. If you have aquatic minions as early drops, you don't need to build right next to the well. You want to make use of their aquatic ability, and this allows you to save one tile. So you open here with your aquatic creature. In this case I started with the explore card, so I used explore here and dropped the gift effect from this guy over there to start dropping my other creatures here. But because this says aquatic, you can just play it next to your orb, swim here, harvest on turn 2, and if your opponent isn't threatening it, you can even go in the double harvest spot. And another thing I want to talk about are the creatures with jump or charge, like I have on this hand, or a Grim Fanatic. These are the prime spots for these creatures, so you really want to have in this case a desert over here, so this guy can double harvest, jump over there, maybe even threaten his harvester. Here's another case. I think this guy's called Twitten Diver. You don't have to play him down here since he has jump, and this also gives you the option to choose which side you want to go. Since this is a weak attacker and has low health, you want to dodge his side, so I would jump over here, and this allows me to double harvest these two sides. And this is also an example where how you want to use a charge minions. Either this field or over here, and again you can double harvest and threaten his harvesting creatures. Next I have the opener for flying decks. Flying decks want their deserts as close as you can to your opponent's orb. What I mean with this is you don't build to the sides, you try to build in front of him, but the middle isn't always the best one because it's easier to get blocked and you need one turn, one extra turn to start harvesting. However, you never want to build on this lane, because like with aquatic creatures, you want to make use of your flying, which allows you to step over here and harvest anyway on the following turn you play them. So like if you can, you build a desert here, and if possible even over there, or maybe you draw another harvester. Then it's okay to build a desert here and harvest this side. And another very strong early game minion is Kalim's Sky Prodigy, especially with Explore. This allows you to play him on one of these spots, like where I said, where charge minions and jump minions really shine, because you can double harvest, you threaten his harvester, and yeah. You could also play him on this spot if you don't have Explore. Let's say I don't have Explore and I go desert here, desert over there. Usually you wouldn't want to play him on this desert, since you have the charge, which if you play him over here allows you to choose the side later, and depending on what creatures he's playing, let's say he plays a ground shaker over there, you want to dodge the ground shaker, right? So you go to the left side then. And another thing for Battletoads in specific, this is a very solid opener, since you have 2 harvesters in only 1 card that costs 4 Faeria. You just open lake, lake, and then the following turn would go plain, plain, to neutral fields, and then you can harvest 2 sides very early. Okay, I think that's it for the special stuff. Yeah, and then again, how to place your lands against rush decks. Like we said, rush decks pretty straightforward. They build a line to your face, but they eventually want to get in these spots over here, which you want to deny them. Even if you play like mid-range stuff, if you see this guy turn 1 this, and especially turn 2 this, you want to secure these 2 spots. Even if you don't have the harvester, you don't want them to have these spots. And here, this is a good example also why you don't build in front of your orb. It doesn't really matter if he has this field or this field, because this allows him to attack the following turn anyway, unless you want to play creatures in between, which usually only matters late game. But you force him to waste 1 land here, and it's easier also to just step on it and block, because from this field he has 2 attacking sides. Same goes for this field, where he can choose from which he wants to attack. Here's another example how to play against Yellow Rush. Again, just build the 2 sides. The Yellow Rush player wants to get into my into my face, and yeah, you just deny him these spots. That's a lucky draw, so you can even play your other harvester over there. And on the long run, Yellow Rush players, if you have the minions out which harvest and you have some removal, they will lose late game, because with this land placement it's hard for them to recover when they are not harvesting. And finally, against a burn list, like this is just AI, but let's assume he's playing the red-yellow burn deck, which would mean he plays like deserts here and more burn creatures, like also rebel slingers, for example. If you see this early, and even if you play a control list, you won't have the time to just sit back and harvest both sides, because burn lists, unless you have healing, will close out the game eventually. So you have to start. So you have to basically, you are pushed into the aggro player role, and you have to start building towards them and start attacking them with creatures. Since they have, if they draw like 70% of their deck, they will just kill you through their burn. They don't even need to hit you. So basically that means you're on a clock, and even with all these great early harvesters, you are forced to build to them and pressure them. I think that's it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, bye.